Hi everyone, welcome to Quantum Lucid. Today we're going to talk about the multiverse. Now, why I believe in the multiverse is something I want to put out there first. I believe there is such a thing as multiverse lookalike worlds, versional worlds, because that's one of the ways it makes sense to me that all things are possible, especially when it comes to individual people that we thought were one and done. We've always been conditioned to believe we live in a world where there is only one set of us, meaning there's one me, there's one you, there's one of everybody else, and everything is final when it comes to people. So if somebody dies physically in this world, it's final. Another thing is if somebody decides to have free will and do something different than what you'd like, it's final. And we've been living with this finality or permanence or solidity in our brains, thinking that is the only way it works. But if all things are truly possible, and it is, then another way to make sense of it all is to come up with the idea of multiverse. And it's not wrong. It is a great way to help alleviate some of that confusion and those arguments that come up in your brain that limit your way of living and thinking and believing. It knocks out a whole bunch of blocks and blockages that you might think you're having. It takes you outside of the conventional world to make sense of it all in order to achieve and encounter and experience your desired world. And I love this idea. It's one of my favorite ideas and it works for me. So I'm going to talk more about it. There are many TV shows and movies and series based on this, such as the Loki series, the Marvel movies on Multiverse. And of course, we all know it's treated as an out there topic that nobody really wants to see is true or false. It doesn't matter if it's true, if it doesn't matter if it's false. What matters is the ultimate truth, and that is I am, which is the only reality, and that's the truth, and it'll never change. Whether we call it multiverse, whether we call it simulation, whether we call it the matrix, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. It's what works for you and what's going to help you achieve the end goal. So, looking at the multiverse, every time you make a decision, say you're driving and you want to make a right turn, you take that right turn, but every other possibility in opposition to that, whether that means you went straight, whether you went left instead, whether you got into a car accident, or whether you went to take a right turn, but you were stopped at the turn for a good 5 minutes because of people crossing the street, whether you missed your turn and you went straight ahead, but then you realized, so all sorts of infinite possibilities in accordance to that one decision have to exist because creation is finished. So what happens to those possibilities? Do they just go into thin air and evaporate and only the one decision remains? Of course, that is what we see. That is what we physically encounter, the one decision. But just because we physically only encounter the one decision, the one path that diverged, does not mean the other paths physically did not play out. And that's where the whole idea of multiple versions and multiple worlds and multiverse comes in. Similar to the Loki series from Marvel, there's, multiple versions of an individual. And that's where you call something a version. I think it's least explained in this manifesting community, but in my understanding, versions of a person means exactly that. It's a multiverse term, meaning the same person took a right turn, the same person also is capable of taking a left turn, the same person instead took a straight line, the same person didn't drive their car that day. All those things exist and have to exist. So what are those other people called? The ones that did not physically play out. They are still physical. They are versions. So every time a decision is made, the universe splits into other alternate possibilities in relation to that decision. And that's where versions come in. If you adapt this concept or this way of picturing what's going on, it might help you get a better picture of the whole game. So that's where versions of people come in. So when you're looking at manifesting a version of somebody who is completely different in your physical, current, displayed, circumstantial, environmental world, whether they are not interested in you, if it's a romance situation, or whether they are running the country that you don't like, or whether they are a celebrity, or whether they are your relative or a friend or a colleague or the mailman. It doesn't matter. Every individual person in your reality, look at them as a person in a game. Let's say a NPC. Not a non-playing character, so to speak, but let's just say they're individual characters in a game. But those characters also can come with you to all the different worlds you go to. So sometimes you'll notice that when you make major reality shifts, some people just seem to disappear off the face of the earth for good, like you'll never know what happened to them. If you ask mutual friends or colleagues, they have no idea of their existence even. Sometimes people just disappear. What that could mean is they never existed in that specific timeline. You can make them exist, you can bring them in, you'll just have to play a different story. And a lot of people get confused and hung up on this thing, not sure what's going on. They think it's the one person that you're changing and manipulating and influencing or taking away their free will. All sorts of nasty, limiting concepts arise, and that all arises from the human 3D societal conditioned brain. So you've got to leave all of that behind, only to understand that if you look at the picture as there being multiple 3Ds with multiple yous existing in each of those 3Ds in different versions, including all the other people, the known characters, also existing in different versions. So let's just take version number 1, in this one version of Earth where you are a certain way, you're, say, a school teacher, your relatives do a certain thing, your significant other is in love with you and is married to you. Similarly, in an adjacent, parallel, multiverse world, which looks exactly alike. All the houses and trees and cities and geography, they all look the same. You are also still a school teacher, but you just got fired from your job. Your significant other never met you. You don't know of each other's existence. You are married to somebody else. Your relatives did not move with you to the area that you live in. Maybe they immigrated away and live in faraway cities or countries. You come from a different family background. Your history is different. You grew up in a broken home. You had a sad childhood. Let's take another world, similarly adjacent. You are still a school teacher. You still have your job. Your relatives live in and around your city. You grew up with them. You had a happy childhood with all your cousins and siblings. Your specific person or significant other is in love with you, but you're not married because they don't want to marry you. But you still consider being in a relationship with them. However, they constantly cheat on you. So these are very, very, very specific stories, but unfortunately, these are the stories and the dramas that people carry with them in this current manifesting community. It's a very sad piece of story because this is highly influenced by social media, movies, storylines. It's very normal to have such ugly stories, but that's, again, a divergent segment we'll talk about another time. So let's go back to versions. Let's take another adjacent multiple world scenario. This is a similar world, but here you're not a school teacher. You never completed high school. You work at a factory. The city that you live in no longer looks like the city from version 1.0. Over here, your house is slightly farther away. Instead of a beautiful green area that you lived in, it's a very highly commercial and industrial area with lots of industries and factories and buildings. There's no trees almost. But in the same city, the weather is really beautiful. The trees, however, that do grow are all purple in color. Now, mind you, these are faraway worlds, but these are actually possible and real in real time and in physicality to I am. Okay, let's take another adjacent world, a little bit farther away, but a similar version. You're not a school teacher. You live in a city which is no longer similar to version 1, 2, or 3. Your house is farther away, but this time there's mountains in your city that were never there before. Beautiful mountains, ice-capped mountains. The weather is beautiful. It's a tourist city. You are married to your specific spouse or person of interest, and you live in a tiny little town that is very beautiful. Your relatives live all around you. So I hope you're getting the hang of it. These are just stories I'm coming up with to help you see examples of what versions mean. The version of your specific person, which is a high interest topic right now in the manifesting community, the way I look at it is this. They do exist in version 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to infinity, as solidly real, actual people. Now, the one where you're factory worker, you've never been a school teacher, and you're married to this person of interest, that person of interest and the one in version 1 of the world where you are a school teacher are two different people physically. Until you can get that concept into your head as an actual, factual, real thing, you will have a very hard time understanding and manifesting things in accordance to others. Because the you that exists in that world is a different person physically than the you that exists as a school teacher versus a factory worker. You may think that, somebody just gets an upgrade, goes to school, studies really hard, and becomes a school teacher from a factory worker. That's the earthly explanation and process. But that is not what happens. That is the play-by-play that you get in order to give it time, space, sense. Remember, the third dimension is made up of time and space, length, width, and height. It's a cubic matter world. So in this world, in order to conceive of a new reality, sometimes and many times, a threading of a storyline happens such that it makes sense that you went from a factory worker to a school teacher, or you went from a school teacher who got fired and started working in a factory. It doesn't matter, but there are tons of stories that can fit in to give an explanation. That does not mean one solid thing changes into another. A person does not change their mind and suddenly decide to love you after being apart for 20 years. What you do is you actually call in a different version of them who was already with you from the beginning. It's not a very linear way of living. We are not living in a linear world. We are only pure consciousness who is dreaming in the third dimension that has the characteristics, constraints of time, space, length, width, height, and linearity or chronology or sequence, past, present, future. There is no real past, present, future. There is no real time. There is no real chronology. Those are part of the illusory package meant for functionality, meant for day-to-day living, meant for societal norm, meant for so-called life experience, but it is not what is real. What is real is, again, consciousness. I am pure God, infinity universe, who has percolated multiple dimensions, is constraint and restriction free, is eternal, is infinite intelligence, and is percolating and dreaming within a dimension called third dimension or 3D. So when you bring in the multiverse, it helps explain things and people a lot easier. Why you can lose an object and find it a few days later, but in a different location. It doesn't mean the object decided to travel and place itself in that location. It doesn't mean somebody stole it and dropped it in that location. But those might be the stories that you encounter in order to perceive it at the new location that it will be found in. So those are stories. Everything is stories. And yes, those stories are real. But that is not really what is happening. You are experiencing versions of everything and everyone, including yourself, at any given moment in time, just very close together. That seems like nothing really changed, but it's always a whole complete new universe every single time a change occurs, a decision occurs. Every time it's changing. A dream, the characteristics of any dream, whether it's your nightly dream, is that it's never the same. It's constantly changing. The only constant characteristic of a dream is that it's never constant. It's always changing. Similarly, when I am is dreaming, your body calls your name, it is constantly changing. That is why you can grow taller, shorter, get a tan, get a scratch and heal it. And you can have, now then you can go and practice more changes, such as drastic physical changes, appearance changes, genetic changes. Who knows and who cares? It's all up to you. At this point, once you understand what's really going on, and then you can play with it. So I'm going to leave you at that. I hope this gives you a better picture of what's going on. I really like using the multiverse as an explanation. I think it's a wonderful idea. It draws pictures that help you conceive of what's going on, and it gives you a much, much better and clearer understanding instead of being muddied by confusing theories and chatter all over the internet. I believe in the multiverse, and this is how I look at versions of people and others. It doesn't matter whether others believe you. It doesn't matter whether it's proven or established fact. What matters is you get to your end goal, you get your outcome, and you live the life of your dreams. That's what we're here for. Arguments and limitations belong to those who bring it, and they can keep it. So I'm going to leave it at that. If you have questions or comments, leave them below. Look at my description page in order to join my community, where you can ask more questions or look at articles, look at stories, all sorts of things. And I'll talk to you in the next video.